Uh, as you see, I have named my presentation Welcome to the World of Energy Storage. I wrote batteries first and then quickly changed it to energy storage, listening to Priyakshi's introduction. Okay, so first and foremost, IESA, we are an alliance having 185 members across the value chain, generation, as well as supply chain, recycling, reuse, all these we have members across the value chain. These are our members across various categories of membership. We work in the domains of stationary storage, e-mobility, manufacturing and supply chain, green hydrogen and recycling and reuse. Well, I'm not here to speak about this, so I just wanted to give an introduction about that. And let's get into the story, which I love naming as India's energy storage journey. Well, the demand is huge. Okay, we estimate that around 47 gigawatts of battery storage into 5 hours, that is 236 gigawatt hours of battery storage capacity, and pumped hydro capacity of 26 gigawatt into 6 hours of pumped hydro capacity will be required by in the Indian grid by 2031-32, requiring an investment of 479,000 crores from 2022 to 2032. That is the level of investment and demand projection that India has for energy storage. Now, if I add EVs into this and demand from EV batteries into this, we estimate that the total demand of batteries is going to be in 2031-32 around 2 terawatt hours of demand will be there in India. Looking into this potential, government has come across with various enablers, some demand side, some supply side, with demand side enablers being energy storage obligation of 4% by 2030. We have a national energy storage framework. Very recently, government came out with advisory that solar installation has to be paired with 10% of storage or 2 hours of storage. We have waivers in form of ISTS waivers, that is, you don't have to pay interstate transmission charges. And we have viability gap funding, which was initially proposed to support 4 gigawatt hours, and 40% of this 40% of the cost will be borne by the government. That was later turned to 13.5 gigawatt hours, with saying that 30% of the cost will be borne by the government and paid in tranches as you commission, and first year, second year, third year of operations that will be paid to you. This VGF at present is supporting 8 states and the total capacity of 13.5 out of 13.5, 12.1 gigawatt hour has been tendered out. Now, guidelines for competitive bidding are in place. We have batteries and energy storage being allowed to participate in ancillary market, which includes secondary and tertiary ancillary service market. Unfortunately, it is not allowed in primary services. We have the budget in which the energy storage was defined as a champion sector and later on introduced in the harmonized group of infrastructure. We also have a separate policy for pumped hydro coming in very recently. So as I said to you that the enablers are not only for demand acceleration, but also to look into how we can better have a control on supply side. We have a PLI of 18,100 crores, which is supporting 50 gigawatt or of battery storage manufacturing capacity, ACC PLI. Out of this 50 gigawatt hours, 40 gigawatt has been awarded, for 10 gigawatt hour is in work. We had critical minerals identified and also a critical mineral mission announced this year, but in the budget. The government also is looking into how they can take control over processing of these raw materials, because that is the main concern. Mining, processing, if you look into the domination of China, it is during the processing of raw materials that China dominates. So India is looking into forming partnership with countries to have meaningful partnerships. And we have been having state governments also giving incentives and subsidies on battery manufacturing to set up in their states. India has set up a carbon initiative to investigate securing long-term supply of raw materials, and ministry is in plan to design a PLI system for battery recycling also to boost energy circularity. These has been the policy and regulatory advancements. Now, states has not been cut back. Energy is a concurrent subject, so states also have to come out with their policies. We have various states following, including energy storage in their RE policies, as they have individual EV policies also, with some states giving a mandate, giving a target of energy storage deployment by 2030. We have multiple states now, and Assam is the first state which came out with a energy storage regulation guideline on tenders. Grid India has calculated the short-term resource adequacy plan, and as per them, by 2025-26, we will require 4 gigawatt, 17 gigawatt hour of battery storage, and 3 gigawatt and 16 gigawatt of pumped hydro in the grid. Taking into consideration everything announced, under construction, tendered, awarded projects, we find that we are just at the right spot of meeting this target. That is, we cannot delay a single project. So said, the Grid India has been, Grid India, saying, so said India has come out with tenders. The tendering activity has been fast. We have around 24 tenders as of date in 2025 alone. We are just in May. Last year we had 35 tenders. Total we have 110 tenders. Yes, a large amount of that had got cancelled in 22 and 23. 24, it looks much healthier, and 25 looks even more healthier. If I convert the number of tenders into capacity, we have 158 gigawatt hour of tenders, which are there in the market in various stages. We have 57 in open tendering stage, 39 gigawatt hour that has been cancelled, and 46 gigawatt hour is under construction today. If I bifurcate them into batteries and pumped hydro, we have 53 gigawatt hour of batteries and 106 gigawatt hour of pumped hydro in the grid issued today. And of which the batteries we have not much under construction, but pumped hydro 39 gigawatt hour is under construction. You look into the business models, the prevalent business model has been build and operate. We also have quite a number of EPC tenders coming up in the game. Now let us come to the tender landscape. India has various categories of tenders. We have standalone, FDRD, that is firm and dispatchable renewable tenders, and solar plus storage tenders. Standalone is of two types, battery storage and pumped hydro. Now these are easy risk-averse tenders in the sense that government gives you land, they give you charging power, and the tenor of the PPA period is 12 years, and you know the off-taker. So multiple of this risk are addressed in these tender documents, right? So therefore, you see largest amount of tenders has been issued in standalone domain. We also have a VGF here. So 37 standalone battery storage tenders catering to 32.5 gigawatt hours has been issued till date. We have solar plus storage tenders. This has been a black horse in the entire game. Initially, solar plus storage tenders would be coming out for remote islands like Lakshadweep, like Andaman and Nicobar Islands, like Kargil, Leh, Ladakh. Now, these were these small scale EPC tenders. Then SECI came out with a large scale solar plus storage tender, which found out price discovery. I will come to the price discovery later on. And the third category is FDRE, that is firm and dispatchable renewable tenders. These are of four categories: assured peak, load following, RTC, and peak supply. A short peak is a model in which the tender authority says, you give me whatever you want to give me throughout the day, that is wind, solar. 4 hours during the day, you have to give me 90% availability. That is, if you're bidding for 100 megawatt of FDRE, you have to give me 90 megawatt for 4 hours. This is a assured peak model, and then comes load following. Load following is the kind of tender in which government gives you a load profile and says, hey, you need to match this load profile with adhering to it 90% hour on hour. Now this is difficult, as you can imagine. RTC is round the clock power, that you're giving round the clock power. and you're given a mandate of so much, the 85% availability around the clock. And we have peak supply in which governments, the tender authority says, hey, this is solar plus storage, but you use the entire solar to charge your batteries. I don't want to take dispatch from solar. 4 hours during the day, that during peak hours, you give me supply. That's it. Okay, so that is peak supply. Out of this, the most attractive has been a short peak model, followed by RTC, followed by load following, and followed by peak supply. I will come to the costs in a bit, just to explain you the tender process and various tenders that we have. Cost-wise, we have been doing well. Standalone wind is at 3.61 and solar as 2.15. As compared to that, FDRE prices has been in the range of 4 rupees, and peak, of course, has been in the range of 8.5 rupees. Standalone storage projects has been in the range of 2.21 to 2.8 rupees per INR per kilowatt, lakhs per megawatt per month, and solar plus storage projects has been in the range of 3.09 to 3.5 to 3.09 is for 2 hours of storage, 3.52 is for 4 hours of storage. We have multiple players in this landscape who has been winners. We have FDRE. If you look into the FDRE winners, they are mostly the natural renewable players who have been the winners. For solar plus storage project, equally, they have been the same names which you hear for wind, solar. Standalone BESS, you find many new players entering this game. As I was telling you, this is the easiest one to enter the game. So therefore, you find that there are multiple new players in this arena. If I look into the tendering process and the awarding process, we find that multiple tenders are getting awarded and not finding a buyer. There is the timeline from that getting awarded to that getting a buyer is around 8 to 9 months. Now that distance we have to kind of work together and reduce that distance, because even after getting awarded and even after getting a buyer, they will start constructing. They will take 18 months to construct the project. So that is, we have very less time. So from today, the operational capacity is 400 megawatt hours, almost nothing. We need 47 gigawatt or 236 gigawatt hour by 2030. That is the difference. So we actually need to install 40 to 50 gigawatt hours per year to meet that target. We are not anywhere close to meeting that target. So that is what the awarding. Now, coming to solar plus storage, if you see 2018 to 22 combined, we had very less number. That increased in 23, 24, and 25 has been the major years. As of today, we have around 11.94 gigawatt of solar coupled with 15 gigawatt of battery storage capacity that has been tendered out. Multiple new players, NHPC, Bihar, NTPC, SECI has come out with tenders and finding price discovery. Now, initially, these would be EPC tenders, which you see the price discovery of 6.9 rupees per kilowatt hour. We found out that price coming down to 3.41 per kilowatt hour for solar plus storage with 2 hours of storage. That increased to 3.52 for 4 hours of storage, and we finally got a 3.09, that is for 2 hours of storage, and coming down 3.41, that is 4 hours of storage. Now, FDRE, as I told you, that 2023 and 24 has been the major years for FDRE, but we also have a number of cancellations there. A number of projects has been awarded, but the projects which has been gone under construction is really low. We have FDRE of 21.6 gigawatt being issued, that is 20 numbers. RFP stage is 5.1 gigawatt, under construction is 3.9, cancelled is 6.7 gigawatt. Now, this is the problematic, and that's why you see in 2025, only one FDRE has been issued till date. The prices has been FDRE load following, that is the hourly matching. We have found out prices of 5.59 to 4.98 rupees per kilowatt hour. Assured peak has been kind of the sweet spot, and you see the reason why it is the sweet spot. The prices has been lower, 4.55 for 4.25. And a short peak, that is 4 hours of dispatch, is at 8.5 rupees per kilowatt hour. Standalone batteries, 2024 has been a phenomenal year. 25 has been equally phenomenal. Now, 2024, total capacity that got tendered was 10.2 gigawatt hour of battery storage capacity. In 2025, we are already at 21.5 gigawatt hours of battery storage capacity getting issued. Out of this 36 now, 36 gigawatt hours, you find 16.4 is an open tendering stage, and under construction is 4.5 gigawatt hours. Multiple states have come out with these tenders, and this is because of the fact of the VGF getting awarded to particular states. The price discovery has been equally encouraging. We had around 4.11, 4.25, 10.83 in the initial tenders. That came down drastically to 3.72 in Juvenil's tender. That is a 66% drop in prices. That further reduced by 38% by introduction of VGF scheme, and to the prices has been 2.37 to 2.5 rupees per lakhs per megawatt per month. And finally, we have around for GUVNL tender, apart from without VGF, coming out with a price of 2.8 lakhs per megawatt per month. Now, you find that these prices have come down. The reason are two. One is, of course, VGF. Second is battery costs coming down significantly. Rahul will explain in his I think in his discussion about the cost part. I'm not talking about the cost part of batteries. We will listen to it as we find the presentation. Now, this is what I wanted to share. I will be open to discussion. I know there are you will have multiple queries on these slides. So happy to take questions from all of you.
Thank you so much, Debmalaya, for that very informative, in-depth presentation, and really appreciate the time and effort you invested in sharing this valuable information with all of us. Thank you so much.
So I'll talk about technical stuff. Hello, everyone. My name is Rahul Bollini. I'm focusing on BESS projects. I've been doing a couple of projects outside India also with real hands-on experience. So any questions regarding, like, I think just a minute ago, someone was reading about what are the after installation issues. We can talk about it in the end. Yeah. Okay. So these are the basic things that I'll be using again and again throughout the PPT, such as cycle life, or cycle, C rate, SOC, DOD, RT, SOH, and calendar aging. So these are the meaning of it. Cycles are when you charge and discharge, you call it as one cycle. Not all cycles could be equal. Some projects are like that, but yes, it's still a cycle. And yes, there is no half cycle, quarter cycle. You cannot do like that. Electrochemistry doesn't work like that. But yes, there are different algorithms to add up those numbers statistically. Coming to C rate is about typically the previous presentation was talking about 4 hours, 5 hours. So all that is called C rate. So 5 hours would be C by 5, which is 0.2 C, or 5, so 5 hours of working. So typically, I think India projects are mostly what's being tendered is 2 hours and 4 hours storage. And coming to SOC is what you see typically the battery percentage reading. So on your phone, if it says 92%, it's 92% SOC. Yeah. And the DOD is the amount of discharge you do per cycle. So say from 92, you go to 32. That's 60% DOD. And then RT is a very, very complicated and a very important factor of why BESS and why LFP or why lithium-ion battery is a clear winner most of the time, most of the projects. So that's because of round trip efficiency. Typically, the 314AH cells used today, they have about 95-ish percentage. And at a system level, if it's 4 hours, you get about 94 plus. And if it's 2 hours, you get up slightly lower than 94% on day one. And this RT goes down. We'll talk about that in a minute. And SOH is the health. So there are different ways to call it. We call it as retention capacity or the health of the battery. Someone who has an iPhone, they can see battery health. So it's the same thing. Yeah. Calendar aging is reduction of the health because of not being in use. So you use it, there are some reduction in the aging, in the health, as well as when you don't use it due to the time factor and due to the storage, how you are storing it. the SOC that it's in, or the temperature it's being stored in, and the time it's being stored for. All this also have a degradation. So we call that as calendar aging. Yeah. It applies to all kinds of batteries, not only lithium batteries or LFP. Yeah. This is a components of BESS. It starts with cell, and then today the most popular pack, which was launched in 2024 and still a trend for projects, although it's changing slightly. Just yesterday evening, I think CATL launched 9 MWh. That's a different architecture. Cluster would have about 408 cells. But yeah, coming to this today, we use 416 cells in a cluster where you would have 4 numbers of pack, and each pack would be 104s. Yes. This again, you would have 52 and 52 and 13 into 4, 13 into 4. That's how it is, yeah. And every cluster needs to have a high voltage box. And these days, to save the space, 2 high voltage box are combined together. So today, when you see a container, you would have 4 plus 4, and then sometimes in between or sometimes in the bottom, high voltage box. And one box can cater to 2 clusters, and 2 clusters are in a single column. Yeah. And this is a liquid cooling unit. And today, as we all know, 5 MWh container is the most popularly used system. In there, this kind of liquid cooling goes, and this are typically rated at 60 kW. 60 kW does not mean the power rating, it is the cooling capacity. So typically the power rating would be 60% of that, 35, 36 kW kind of thing. That is at full capacity at 55 degrees, although 55 degrees doesn't happen every day. And for the battery to have 55 inside, outside should be probably 60 plus, which is unheard of probably, at least today. Yeah. So most of the time, the power consumption would be way below 35. Yeah. And this is an MV skid. Although India does not follow this method, I thought maybe to show it because globally this is followed. This is a very compact way of doing project. So as you can see in the front, you have 2 PCS, and then you have a transformer, typically a MV to LV transformer, and then you have a switch gear. Yeah, we'll talk about switch gear and all in a minute here. So let's start with PCS. So apart from batteries, the next thing that comes, because you might have heard in the market people talking about, I want DC side, I want AC side. So PCS is the beginning of AC side. So this is the component that converts DC to AC for discharge and vice versa. Yeah. So these are bidirectional as opposed to solar inverters, which are unidirectional. That's why this kind of systems can be expensive. Yeah. And the typical voltage on the LV side is about 690. That is being followed today, although some projects do customize at 800 volts to match the solar. This is not in India, but yes, globally, some people do that. Some companies do that, yes. And this is for large projects where, say, 50 by 100 or 100 by 200, those kind of things. And for smaller projects like commercial and industrial, where you want to directly feed with the factory load, or a commercial entity like hospital, colleges, or malls. So they operate typically at 3 phase. Some countries follow 380, some countries follow 400, India follows 415. There are some countries following 440 also, I've seen, yeah. So again, that's kind of adjustable. But yeah, this is a different type of system. We call it a CNI. Yeah, so there are 2 type of PCS popular in the market. And let's come to the types of PCS. This is a very interesting topic which came into limelight recently after the blackouts in Europe about a week ago. So, okay, anyways, this is the image of a unidirectional on the top for solar and how PCS can handle both sides here. Yeah. So typically, most projects back in the days, we would follow grid following PCS. So grid following is something which works well, but if there is a blackout or if there's a power outage or something, it cannot do anything. It does not have an islanding function. Islanding function is to have its own way of operating rather than depending on a grid. So typically, this depends on the grid to maintain that voltage and the frequency. But yeah, grid following is not something which can support during blackout, and that's why it's not used for off-grid projects. Yeah. So the new type of PCS, what many countries are now newly adopting, is called as grid forming. So grid forming is something which works along with the grid. And when the grid does not work, it can support a blackout. So typically the functions include black start as well as if there's a power outage kind of thing. Yeah. So this is something very helpful for off-grid projects, especially when you are trying to have independent grid kind of thing, and also on-grid projects where for places which does not have reliable power system. So grid forming PCS makes a lot of this thing use there. Yeah. So next thing, like I showed in the MV skit, there's a transformer after PCS. So typically there's a battery, and then you have a DC cable, and then you have a PCS, and then you have a LV cable, and then comes this MV/LV. So it means it can convert MV to LV power, AC power. Yeah. So this is a transformer which is required in all the BESS projects where you are doing AC coupling, and this would typically convert the 690 that I was talking about and take it to the medium voltage. So typically in India, we see 11 kV, 33 kV as typical medium voltages. Some countries, say in Europe and all, they follow 20, 22. I've seen those kind of numbers, but all these are medium voltages. That can be again configured from the supplier. So there's no need to worry that, okay, it's a very, it cannot, yeah. And after the MV/LV transformer, there's a switch gear. So let's talk about the switch gear. Sorry, there's no images. I'm not very good with images. I'm trying to keep it as technical as possible. Yeah. But yeah, but feel free to ask any questions. Yeah. So switchgear is something, it's a system where you have circuit breakers, fuse, and all those protection things for isolating system. So if at all there is some issue and you want to isolate that particular part of the project, so switchgear comes into play. Yeah. And a new regulation in certain countries is asking for SF6 based gas insulating switchgear. So SF6 is a very inert and very non-reactive gas, and a very dense gas, but highly greenhouse gas. But it is something that is being accepted for insulation. It's a gas type insulation. It's non-toxic, and the systems are designed in a way where it cannot escape the system. Yeah, the gas cannot escape. Yeah. This is a view of a 100 by 200 megawatt hour. This image was taken from another company. So nothing to do with me. Yeah. But yeah. So as you can see, this place, and this place is a little over 1 acre. Little over 1 acre. Yeah. So this is the compactness that you can do when you use the MV skid. So this is MV skid, and I think someone was asking about what about sodium ion. I'll show you how sodium ion looks like. This is 100 by 200. This is sodium ion 50 by 100. Again, not my project, just showing for reference, but these are real projects. So the difference I'll tell you, in sodium ion, for half the size, you need the same kind of space, pretty much. So in sodium ion, this project was done in China. It has 42 containers, and the number of PCS and the MV skid is about, again, 21 numbers of 2.5. So this was done. And as you can see, LFP is so much more compact. So when people keep asking me, it seems sodium ion cells could go down way below LFP, I say that's true. But again, at a system level, there can be added costs. For example, you need more containers, you need more liquid cooling unit, you need more land, you need more cables, you need more BMS, more bus bar, and more, all those cabinets and the boxes, the battery pack boxes, and all those things. So it's a whole lot of things. Also, when you go for 5 MVA transformer or a 2.5, 2.5 kind of PCS with 1.5 MVA, that system is cheaper than the sodium ion where they are using 2 into 1.25 into a single transformer of 2.5. So there's a whole lot of balance of system. So typically in electric vehicles, one could see that. Just a minute. Yeah. In a typical electric vehicle system, one could see that the cost of the cell in a system could be as high as 80, 85%. And then, then there's a BMS and all. And these days, people are using single BMS for 100S also. Some companies are doing that for cars. I've seen that in Indian cars also. But yeah. But energy storage, the cost of the cell is not really 80% of the project. It can be as low as 60%. Yeah, so we will deep dive into cost. As Debmalaya said, Rahul can talk about cost. I cannot give you exact numbers because there's a lot of things that go in a project, such as the number of hours of storage. Accordingly, the PCS transformer and the battery sizing comes into play, and the size of the project, obviously, and then the various factors, I would say. Yeah, where the price can kind of fluctuate. Yeah. Yeah, but going back to the next topic, this is HV by MV. So this is a transformer which steps down high voltage. Typically in India, you could see 66 kV, 110 kV, 220 kV. And our main line is also 400. I was told we are using 765 also. And we are testing 1200 kV, which is one of the highest in the world, I was told. But yeah, so this are typically high voltages. So if the power need to be transported to very far places, then projects would require this kind of a transformer to be placed so that the MV power can be stepped up and sent further. Yeah. So I've seen some projects in India asking for this kind of things also. Please keep in mind this kind of projects would need this extra transformer and the cost would go up. So you have extra MV cable after the MV/LV transformer, you have extra MV cables and then this kind of transformer. So the cost goes up. So the bidding prices cannot be apple to apple if this is included. This could be slightly higher, yes. And another thing about yeah, this kind of project, it is very close to 85% RT, and the other project where the measuring point is after MV, at a MV point. So there the round trip efficiency is typically 87 plus, almost 88. But yeah, here it is typically below 87. And as one would be aware that batteries round trip efficiency with aging goes down, and there is a very high risk and a certain risk of RT dropping below 85 if you're doing this kind of project. So typically you could see anywhere, again, depends on the use conditions and all. Typically 6th or 7th year, you could see the RT going down below 85. So be ready to calculate the penalty charges that you would be paying. Yeah, if you're doing this kind of project. The other project probably your RT would go down in, again, depends on number of cycles and all, probably 9th or 10th year kind of thing. But RT going down below 85% is a very certain thing, because the batteries that I was talking about initially, which have 94, after 12 years of this 2 cycle kind of projects, they have less than 92. So the 2% is going to take away a number which is hanging around very closely at 85. Yeah. So coming back to single line diagram of a BESS container, like I was saying, there's packs, there is a high voltage box, and then all the outputs from high voltage box. So typically a 5 megawatt hour would have 12 clusters. And as you can see, 6 high voltage boxes. That 6 output would go into a single DC combiner box, and that would go to the PCS, and that PCS would work with the transformer, and then it goes on. Yeah, so this is how it looks like. And as you can see, there's 3 tier of BMS in there. There's one inside the pack. There is one inside the high voltage box, and one in a common thing in each container. Yes, and this pretty much. Also, I think someone was asking about how to make components for BESS. So one must understand that all the components inside BESS, although they look like a normal component, they are communication enabled component. For example, the cooling system. So it is communication enabled. The fire protection system, although it looks like a typical, so typically people use Novec type. It's a perfluorohexanon. That is the one that most of the time people are using these days. Although earlier days, people would use heptafluoropropane. Yeah, but this kind of the system in this, I think we use about 70 liters of fire protection tank. Yeah, so all these are enabled by communication. So you should have that option in your component, as well as the company should have that access to kind of synchronize that. Only then you can be a component supplier for BESS. Yes. This is a single line diagram or SLD of a project, very simply shown, that's all. But where you could have, um, yeah. So this is one of the ways where you could, if you have a project of very high system availability, then there are projects where people do 1:1. Although this is a very rare project, this can be expensive. So typically people use 5 by 10. This is 2.5 by 5. And one of the other reason is because it's an odd number. So it's not an even number. If it was 6 numbers of PCS, then we could have gone with 3 into 5. But again, so whenever you are doing a project, try to go for numbers which are like even number of this thing PCS. Only then you will have a better project viability. This kind of system would be slightly expensive at a PCS and this kind of system. Yeah. This is again for MV skid. Yeah, India does not do MV skid, so we can do a different arrangement here. But yeah. So one more important aspect, as someone who has worked with cell and BESS, I can tell you one thing for sure. Cell cycle life is not equal to BESS cycle life. So cell cycle life is done. I'll tell you the conditions of both, and then you can decide how different they can be. So cell cycle life is done in a way, firstly, the air conditioner would be kept below 25 so that the cell surface temperature can be kind of like, at hovering around 25. That's the first thing. Second thing, we do a very defined way of charge and discharge. Although all cells tests that reports that we see, they are done at 100% DOD, which is depth of discharge. But there is a catch. There's no calendar aging. So let's say they charge for a 0.5 C, and then there is a typical rest period 15 to 30 minutes, depending on how much the cell has heated. And then again, there's a discharge at 0.5 C, and then again, there's a rest, and this continues. So as I was explaining before, that calendar aging is something where the battery degrades by itself during non-usage conditions. So that does not apply here. And calendar aging takes away a good chunk of state of health of a BESS during the project size, yeah. During the project duration or the project lifetime, yeah. So that is something. So at a cell level, the temperature is pretty much 25. There is no calendar aging, and there's a good rest period, which again in projects may not be the case. Although yes, projects, nobody want to do 100% DOD. They typically go 95. I've seen one project with 97 also. But yeah, this is the most. And as you increase the DOD, there is a risk of balancing issue. I think someone was asking what are the issues that you face after installing. So this is the first issue. Every few months, you need to balance the systems. Whatever said and done, and cells are manufactured in a way, one must understand that in a liquid cooling unit, the input of the liquid cooling, where it goes, that cells are more cooler than the output of the liquid cooling coming out. So the cells near the output will degrade faster than the input side. So balancing issues will come eventually. After the first 2 years, you will start seeing small degradation issues. And also one must understand that the degradation of LFP cells, at least in the first 2 years at a system level, is very high. First year being the highest, second year being second highest, and then it pretty much flattens out. Yeah, it pretty much flattens out. So that's how it is. And coming back to the conditions, there is yes, so the temperature is not 25 in BESS, it's higher. Again, people use cooling, but cooling does not apply exactly at 25. It's a little bit on the higher side. Second thing is the heat from the surrounding cells can surface, can come to the surface of the cell. So that also adds up, and heat is the biggest enemy of say, battery health. And next thing again would be when you laser weld a cell. So there is some resistance added on top of the cell's typical value. Again, that increases the heat. And that's why, when I said the cell round trip efficiency is over 95, the system is, close to 94. This is the reason. Yeah. So there's a whole lot of things which add up heat, and the operating temperature is higher. And this creates the, yeah, and this creates the cycle life to go below. But the good thing about the BESS is you could take BESS to 60% SOH. You have that leeway. And cell cycle life, typically people do at 70%. But one must be very careful after the 70% degradation. The degradation from 70 to 60 may not be even. Nobody has seen it. And looking at from my past experiences of cell degradation curves, I can tell you there can be a knee point. So knee point, I've written an article about it, but I can tell you knee point is, like I said, there's a flat degradation. Knee point is a point where it bends down. Yeah, so it's a very high possibility. So you need to be prepared for the risk mitigation in projects where you're going below 70, or typically below 65. Yeah. Okay, let's go to the next topic. Priyakshi, how much time do I have?
You have nearly 10 to 15 minutes more.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so let's come to BESS. I'm sure Mr. Debmalaya covered pretty much of it, but I'll just run through it again. So there's a peak demand, and it's not always about saving money or something. It's about demand management for bigger entities like government. To keep the population happy, you need to supply the energy demands and avoid the load shedding, which typically we used to experience during our childhood. So those are disappearing thanks to peak demand management. Peak shaving, again, similar thing. It's about it's a different way of saying, but yeah, both are about managing. One is taking, one is giving, those kind of thing. And then frequency stabilization. So it's a very strict measure. All grids must follow a very strict frequency, and if frequency is not being maintained, there are a lot of repercussions, including the equipment damages and all a whole lot of things happen. So if you have been to a power station, you will see there are two things that anybody keeps in mind. The demand is being met and the frequency is being met. So frequency is a very important factor, and BESS, it can give that extra power to stabilize the frequency in case of frequencies on the lower side. And when the frequency is on the higher side, it can store that power. Yeah. And interesting thing, one might have heard about Dux curve. So Dux curve is when the solar is going to the peak and the demand is reducing, there is a big gap. It looks like a duck. So I could not get the image, but yeah, there's many of them. So that is when you just have free energy. You just need to find a way to waste that energy. So why not store it for free? So this is a typical scenario where it happens. And some countries, what they do, some countries where they have energy trading, I'm doing some projects there, so I can tell you there, the prices of energy purchased during those peak, during the Dux curve hours is very, very, very low. Especially after the Spain blackout, it has gone to minus now. So I'm seeing typical values minus $1 and those kind of thing. Typically, they used to be about 10, 20, 30 euros, but they have gone down crazy now. Yeah. So this is something that you could store and then later, sell for a good premium in the evening. Obviously, when there's no solar, but yeah, business opportunities. Again, there's manufacturing. There is electrification. You could do microgrids kind of thing. There is tender kind of projects. You could give energy as a service, energy as a capacity, what all these tenders are doing. And then you could do off-grid projects. And one thing people tend to miss out is EV chargers. So I had written an article which came out on EV Reporter 2 days ago. Even there, BYD talked about it. The fast charging that they are trying to give, which is typically supports 1360 kW of power. So fast charging and doing it across a country, whatever good grid you have, you will have some issues of grid support issues. So that's where a battery can come into play. And everybody knows a charger does not run for 24 hours throughout the day. So when it does not run, battery could charge. When it runs, battery could complement the power. So this kind of projects are picking up big time. And I saw recently during my trip to Dubai, I could see one of the charger plus battery, and I was talking to the company as well. And then they were telling me that this is a serious necessity, especially for chargers which are above 100 kW kind of thing. Like there's 240, 360, 480. And yeah, nowadays I think 960 with 2 guns of 480 has also come. Yeah. And cost, many people keep asking me cost. So I've put in a number of components that go, as well as approx cost. So 70, 80%, 80% if you're almost 80, if you're doing 4-hour project, if you're doing a 2-hour project, lower than 80 kind of thing. And then again, the EMS cost can be 2 to 3%. And then there is civil infra and transportation depends. Are you buying locally? Are you importing like semi knockdown, or how it goes? But there's transportation to be paid at everything's. Yeah. So one of the advantages that I would like to add is of making in India is when you import the cells, you could have lower duties on the cell comparing to importing a system in terms of semi knockdown kit. So if you import in terms of semi knockdown kit, you're paying 11% duty. And when you do bring the cells only, so there's a benefit of IGCR 5.5%. And that 5.5% can go a long way, considering cell is almost 65% of the project cost, yes, if efficiently used. But yeah, but other components, there is a little bit worry about finding suppliers in India. That's why people tend to import initially. But yeah, there are a couple of companies planning to make this kind of components. Again, it's a chicken and egg story, volumes, pack companies who have set up BESS plants in India. They're like, okay, I need component supplier. Component people are like, I need commitment to be able to invest or develop something specifically for BESS. So these things will take a while, but I'm very hopeful eventually we'll see some component manufacturers in India. Yeah. And things like bus bar and all is not a big it's not very difficult. It can be done on day one, obviously. The bus bar as well as uh, the battery pack box, which is the cabinet, those kind of thing, container also. But one need to be mindful that the container should have a load bearing capacity of almost 40 tons, considering the system is 44 tons, 43, 44 tons. Yeah. And coming to, okay, this is something, yeah. Next thing is replacement and maintenance. One must understand that you need to do system balancing. On system balancing days, you cannot do 0.5C charge discharge. You'll have to do a very slow charge, very slow discharge. So maybe that days you may have some losses if you're not able to meet your commitments. But yes, that's a mandate, especially for project after 2 years. So as I was saying, there's system balancing, and then you'll have to think about replacements. Typical EMS life runs 6 to 8 years. You'll have to replace it for 12 years or 25 years projects. And PCS again 8 to 12 years or 8 to 10 years, depending on the supplier, and then the provenness of the product at a particular in a particular geography, also depending on the D rating. So the higher you do D rating, the more likely the PCS can survive, and it's critical components. Yeah. And then coming to there's aux power. I'll come to the aux thing in a minute with a detailed calculation. But yeah, aux is something all projects, especially the tender projects and all, the people need to buy separately for standalone, and for solar they can kind of adjust. But again, solar people can only adjust during the daytime, evening time. If it is counted in a way, then yeah, people will have to borrow from outside. I don't know how that metering or thing is done. Is it adjusted or paid separately? But yeah, you will have to borrow. You need the infra for that. So typically this kind of projects, we have a separate three-phase line, 415 or 380 depending on the equipment, and then that would be converted from the PCS, and then it would be fed to the aux power. So typically aux includes many more components. It's not only about the cooling unit. There's a whole lot of things. Even technically running a EMS also needs power. So that is also aux. So there's a whole lot of things. BMS has its own self-consuming power and all. Yeah. So there is some 24-volt DC power that need to be done. So there's a whole lot of power things that's there. But yeah, that requires energy. And typically, if you are above 85% RTE on day one, you could borrow some of the aux power, but remaining you will have to take from the grid. Again, depends on solar, or is it you're having a standalone. Yeah. And there's battery degradation, like I was saying. So Indian projects typically follow 2.5 annual degradation, although batteries don't work like that. Batteries initially degrade very high first 2 years, and then it kind of flattens out. So to cover that initial first 2 years of high degradation, we oversize the battery. That is something. We also oversize the battery to maintain less than 100% DOD. We also oversize the battery to cover up for the losses that you have from the battery to the measuring point. Yeah. So we'll come to the losses also in a minute here. So these are certain things as a pointers which you need to keep in mind while doing BSS project. There is quality related and provenness, and the price, and there is replacement, cost of replacement, maintenance cost. Although there's no direct maintenance, probably if you see inside a container, like with experience, I can tell you the depending on the fire protection system that you use, some tanks have a limited life. You'll have to change it regardless of it's being used or no. That is something. Second thing is the liquid cooling, which is typically a 50-50 water glycol mix, may kind of evaporate, although it's expected. It's not seen because 1-2 years is too early for that. But yeah, you will have to be prepared for that top up. That's something that you could see. And system balancing is one thing I told you. And then EMS is one more thing that one should be prepared for. And yeah, there's policies and grid standards, and especially for using inverters, grid codes are very important for on-grid projects. So that is something people have to look into. And environmental impact, recyclability, as these projects are all more than 10 years, so you have enough time to find a recycler to work with. And yes, there is good value for recycling. So probably when you're doing your financial calculation, you could add a small recycling value in the end. So typically keeping there's 4,992 cells in a container, and then each is about 5.6 kg. And per kg, I think today LFP sells about 60 rupees or so for big volume people. So you could do your math, how much money you can make. And the container is obviously, it's a metal and it would have its own scrap value. But yeah, you could do whole calculation. There is some recyclable value. Yeah. Coming to selecting technology. So there's a very common question that why only lithium ion? Why not any other technology? So as somebody who has seen a lot of technologies, I always talk about these certain things. First thing is the cost, long-term cost. So people may claim this is a 30 years life, but you'll have to pay upfront today. Considering the bank interest rate we are seeing today, and the money doubles in what, 7 8 years kind of thing. Sometimes it makes sense that you go with replacement kind of strategies, and especially when the project does not require. And round trip efficiency, so last time I remember I was talking to somebody for compressed air, they said 60%. I said that's, you're wasting energy. So here, like we are saying, the DC side itself is coming about 94%, and the end of project comes kind of like 92. Footprint, the space required obviously, and the civil works, and how easy it is to put in and remove it kind of thing, and the speed of charge discharge. So I remember flow batteries and all, the people say you cannot just charge and discharge in 2 hours. You need at least 4 5 6 hours kind of strategy. So that is something, and maintenance requirements and all you need to consider. And how old is the technology is also very important. So yes, LFP has been evolving, different things have come up recently. I've written an article on high compaction density type material also, but although that's not for energy storage, yes, it's evolving, but LFP has been there. I still remember the story. I think the development of LFP started in China in 2003 or so. It had come from Japan that time. Yeah, so 20 plus years. And number of companies producing. Obviously, you don't want to work with one company who does the only product, and then you're stuck with them. Yeah. So capacity augmentation. Now, this is a very interesting topic, especially for projects where you have to invest your own money and charge monthly, kind of like that, the popular Indian tender. So people would like to slightly reduce, if possible, rather than going with a fit and forget solution, where they could add a little bit of capacity later. So this helps in better capex management, and the revenue generation in future can be adjusted for buying new assets kind of thing. But one serious thing here is you'll have to size the transformer, the big one and the medium one. The HVMV and the MVLV transformers must be well sized to be able to take this kind of augmentation in the future. But yeah, this is some typical strategy. Again, the degradation, depending on the time when you're putting, it will be different. You'll have to create a chart for that. So people keep asking me, how do you simulate? I'm like, I don't do anything simulation. I do everything manual. Takes really a lot of time, but yeah, that's the only way to do it. And this is a real data of a supplier, where you could do augmentation. You could see here the augmentation is here, and then this is typical DOD you're maintaining, and then there's a degradation. Typically, I would like to show one more thing. Yeah, there's something people would like to should understand. If projects are getting delayed, you're losing battery capacity. The nameplate capacity no more applies to that. So there's a typical again given by a real manufacturer. But yeah, so they oversize the battery in a way that, so 314, probably 318, 319, 320 kind of, 322 also I've seen some people. Yeah. Again, it's batch to batch. There's no guarantees here, but yeah, it's well oversized, so that by the time the cell is going for BESS manufacturing, and then the BESS manufacturing is this is a typical China way of telling. Let me be open. Yeah, but yeah, this is the chart that they give, and when you are shipping it to a port, and then after FOB, this is the degradation kind of thing. So the oversizing is done enough that shipment plus 3 months can still give you that 5.016 megawatt hour. But after that, you will see typically when I speak to a couple of companies, they say we want to do in 6 months, but I don't know how long really. Like Mr. Debmalaya said, some projects are all in the pipeline, so we'll see more of it. All the giga scales could be expected, and we could see the real timeline. But yes, if your projects are slow, delayed, you are losing capacity, and it kind of increases after 3 months, as you can see, after 6 months almost. Yeah. So coming back to this, these are two different manufacturers. So here the degradation was 0.4, the other one was different. But yes, so you will have to take these values from the manufacturer and accordingly do it. So this is a table which explains pretty much everything that I've spoken about for project management. One side, as you can see, RT is reducing. And again, it's 92.1. Some projects I've seen below 92 also. Again, depends on the supplier. And the degradation, you can see some companies give 4 point something, some companies give 5 point, 6 point, 7 point. Everything could be true. It depends on the cell. So here is where we use the cell reference data. So cell reference data, we see how much it has, how many cycles it has covered in the first, 92, 93%. And because that is a major degradation. So there are many reasons why this happens. One is the material, one is the design, and one is the production process. So these are the three reasons why things could be the way it is. So if when you look at a cell cycle life data, and if they are losing less capacity with particular cycles, and then their retention on a system level also will be lower, but it is wrong to compare same same this thing. Yeah. But yeah, let's go to the next one. Here you can see there's augmentation, there is a DOD, there is a changing RT, and the degradation as per the typical tender of 2.5%. And also the losses, this for MV, so I've taken about 3.2%. For HV, could be slightly more closer to 4. But yeah, this is something, yeah. And then round trip efficiency. So this is a typical thing where people tend to overestimate or underestimate. You need to be very accurate, or else your calculation, financial, everything can go wrong. So typically, it's a two-way calculation where from the transformer there is cable, and then there is a PCS, then there is another cable, there is battery, charge discharge, and then again the reverse thing that goes. Yeah. So these are the pretty much the things that go. Yeah. A BSS design for off-grid. So this is something I would like to add. So typically, if you're doing an off-grid project, you must understand that the aux component, which you typically borrow from a separate grid connection, is lost. That's not there. So renewables can support you during the renewable hours, but during idling time where the EMS and other things, so this is actually your data, the aux, the components and the power, how much, these are all maximum power. So there's no proper definition to it because it depends on the temperature, the chiller, but other things are pretty much, these are all in watts. It's not a big difference. Yeah. Others are hardly 2 kW. Yeah. But coming back to off grid, yes. So you will have to manage this things from the battery itself. So you will need a separate inverter which can power those loads. So there would be a small DC-DC converter for 24-volt loads, and for AC loads, you'll need a small inverter. So this need to be managed and oversized also. Yes. And there is also there are some projects where people are concerned, or one should be concerned that with time the battery capacity reduces. And typically, if you're doing a 24-hour project where solar is operating throughout the day and the evening need to be with BESS, and evening as the battery capacity goes down with time, and the backup hours would reduce, and there's a small gap of energy not being there. So that time, typically, there are countries, at least I've seen in off-grid Middle East projects, people tend to synchronize a diesel generator through this thing, a voltage synchronization part, and using some switch and all. That is an option. Or I suggest go for augmentation. Yeah. Either way works, but you need to keep this in mind. Yeah. So I had a couple of things to add, but Priyak, she told me strictly to keep it under 20 minutes. So I'm trying to wrap up. Maybe next time. Yeah.